Jamie White is a trial attorney. He joins me live to provide some of the insight on this rare prosecution. Thank you for taking the time to be with me. We've seen cases where parents have been charged for the actions of their children. I think of the mom of a 6-year-old who shot his teacher in Virginia. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison for felony child neglect. What makes the Crumbley parent case different?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things. And just so you know, we actually just had a similar case, Chris, in Michigan, where a 2-year-old got access to a gun and was fatally injured. And, those parents are facing prosecution as well. So on its face, as a general matter, this is certainly something that we have seen before. It's very standard for parents to be held accountable for the behavior of their children. Maybe not criminally necessarily, but I can tell you, if at least in Michigan, if your young person goes into the community and creates some level of mayhem, you're getting a bill as a parent. You're certainly on the hook financially. So what I think, to answer your first question, what I think makes this case unique and different is, obviously school shootings have been it's just an unbelievable problem in our country. And, as we try to figure out ways to fix it, in my opinion, the Oakland County prosecutor decided that it's time to start holding parents accountable. And the facts here are well known in public. This isn't just somebody that left a gun out that became accessible to a young man. This is someone, they purchased the weapon. He's making pleas for help and clearly had problems that have been reported by school authorities, as you indicated in your opening, just, an hour before the incident. So this is unusual in the sense where we're dealing with a mass school shooting. I think we're going to see more examinations across our country as these things happen, and to what extent parents, should play a more vital role. But we've seen the problem in different contexts, and I strongly believe that these folks are going to be held accountable.
And since this story happened, the shooting happened, the parents in some ways have had a united front, but now they head to court where the mom and the dad will have separate trials. What about that dynamic you're watching as someone in the legal community?
Yeah, so without getting too deep in the legal weeds, what's going on here is that it appears they're going to have antagonistic defenses. And so that requires a separation of the trials, because you have a right to remain silent. And if you're arguing that somebody did something, you have a right to call them as a witness. And so, so the legal solution in a situation like this is to separate the trials. And it does appear, at least what's been publicly reported, that there is some finger pointing going back and forth. So that's an appropriate decision. Mr. Crumbley may benefit from this, and to some degree, because he's going to see the outcome of his wife's trial. And we've all known what the outcome of his son's trial was. So he may benefit in a sense where if she's convicted and hammered, it may open a door for, him to seek some level of negotiation with the prosecuting attorney.
And would you expect them to turn on each other based on the advice they're getting from their lawyers?
Yes, I do. I do think there's different levels of culpability, at least what's been publicly reported. And so that in of itself embeds an antagonistic defense, even if they don't take the stand and say, this was my husband's fault or this is my wife's fault. We have two different levels of evidence. It's a slim hair. In my opinion, they're both responsible for this behavior of their son, or at least responsible for not preventing it. But there are some differences as far as who purchased the gun and, and that sort of thing. So not unusual at all. It's a safe play for the prosecuting attorney, because they don't want to see this come back on appeal. The young man has already indicated he's going to appeal his life sentence. So I think the prosecutor and Judge Matthews are being very careful to make sure that everybody's rights are in place. So when justice happens, whatever that ends up being, nobody will claim that there was biased decisions or that they didn't get a fair day in court.
The Crumbley's attorneys, they do argue that the parents had no idea that their son was going to do this. The court of public opinion may disagree with that just based off of what's been reported. But when you look at how strong of a case do they have?
So when you say that the Crumbleys have, I think they have an extraordinary, difficult task in front of them. Quite frankly, I believe there could have been higher charges imposed. Involuntary manslaughter basically suggests that you were reckless in your decision making, and somebody died as a result of that decision. A manslaughter charge requires, some level of malice. You didn't intend to kill anybody, but your decision, which could lead to a death from any reasonable point of view, would justify that sort of charge. So I think they've gotten away with one already. I'm very familiar with Oakland County. This is the most populous county in Michigan. It's a very conservative court community, and I think these folks are going to be held accountable to a high level. We used to have guidelines in Michigan, all over the country actually, that limited the ability of judges to do certain things, and that's been stricken down.
It'll be
so now court.
I'm being told that we've run out of time, but I appreciate you coming on, trial attorney Jamie White, because it's an interesting case and it's one to watch and see how it'll have impact elsewhere. We'll be right back.